Fancy intro music, yeah! Woo! Hey, welcome back everybody, because today we're taking a look at battle logs again. And if you remember, going back a few months, I can't believe it's been like 4 or 5 months. So we did a battle log video covering the basics to discuss, how did damage work? How did it get applied? And then, the different layers that stop it. If you haven't caught that video, I really encourage you to, because there's a lot that explain the logs themselves and gives you a better understanding of what you're looking for when you go out in a fight. And this one, we're kind of doing a similar idea. Well, I don't know if I'd call this a basics of battle log type video, but maybe intermediate. We're talking about calculating critical damage, how exactly that works in the game. And this was spurred on by a conversation we were having in my Discord, and then just got to thinking, hey, we've never made a video on this to show it, so let's showcase this. Also, at the end of this video, we'll cover one of the officers that is, well, once again, not labeled correctly, but is in a good way. And then for those who are curious, if you were here a couple weeks ago when we were doing our live stream where we couldn't get some of the math numbers to line up, we got it. So no big deal there. And we'll maybe cover that in at a later time. But today we're taking a look at these numbers, and we're using my beautiful Tala on my level 18 account. Shout out to server 63 and my Alliance Red. Yeah, we are proud pirates of the Caribbean, or the New Nebulan Sea. I don't know. Whatever. It's here. If you ain't got an alliance on server 63, come check out, chill, whatever. We're going to take a look at this one because honestly, it's easier to put together the math. It's really basic at this level. There's not as many researches into it. And that way I can list them all out. But the idea of how the math works is universal. You simply just need to know how to put them into the formula, and then bam, you're good to go. So we're going to start with how you got to get to the critical point first. So to get to the critical point, you actually have to get the number of your min and max from your weapons, and then you have to determine what damage can be. So the critical bonus, and I've talked about it before, that 155 and 200 depending on who you are, and how Khan activates that, and how 200 isn't necessarily that much depending on when it activates, but it can be very good. It's all about when you can actually get these shots working, because this percentage is separate from our normal damage modifiers. Now I know I'm already starting to get a little bit crazy and confusing, so let me start breaking it down. The very first step you want to do when doing these type of calculations is you want to pull up your weapons. So for here, I've got a tier 6 Tala, and this is the damage it outputs. Now, if you have not maxed out a weapon, one thing you have to remember to do is you need to subtract these numbers. So that would be 716 minus 185, which would be 531, and then 876 minus 227, which would be 649. Now, the reason I do that is because it's displaying what it looked like if you upgrade it. And to find our min max, we have to actually do the math to figure out, here's the bottom of what the weapon can do, and here's the max of what the weapon can do after we add up all of our percentages. So let's get into the idea of what those percentages are. And those percentages are literally anything that modifies damage. So for example, your officer bonus, which for me right now is 96%. You're going to need to write that one down. For example, there's researches, there's buildings. And we're going to cover the basic ones of what my Tala uses, but you are a higher level account, there's even more researches you need to add in. So your ops level is going to be 1. So for me, ops is going to be 18% because it's generally the level that you are. Then you got your shuttle bay, which also does a modifier. Mine is at 17%. And those are the 2 buildings that you have. Now you've also got research to worry about. And like I've got prime damage, which is 100%. I've got energy blast, which is 7%. Battleship weaponry is 2%. So I have those to add in. Now here's what that math is going to look like first. So we're going to take that number, the min max we found. In this case, the minimum is going to be 531 and 649. And now we have to multiply it by the base plus all the modifiers we just listed. Now, if it sounds really confusing, don't worry. We're putting it on the screen for you because we're awesome and we care about you learning the math. So once we do this, we're going to find the number is 2.6. That's our modifier now, which simply would translate to 260%. But for putting it in a mathematical formula, 2.6 is far easier to just navigate and calculate. So now we have 2.6. Now we still have to have our base. So base is always 1 or 100%. That's where we start off from our base point, and that's how we're going to multiply on top of. So in the formula, you would do your, in parentheses, your base plus whatever your modifiers are. In this case, 2.6. So that makes it really easy. We're going to multiply 531 by 3.6, which gives us, 1,911.6. Now, the rounding up, down, we're not even going to fool with that type of logic because this is still Scopely and we don't want to break the world. I mean, the whole world will collapse upon us if we get too crazy. But if you do 531 times 3.6, you're going to get the same numbers I am because we're walking through this step by step. Now you got to do the same thing to the max number. Now, why is that important? Because we need to find the maximum range. So what we're doing here is we're finding the lowest level the attack can be and the highest level. And as long as everything falls in that range through our battle logs, we know that we've done the math correctly. So I've done that now, and you can do it now. The top is going to be 2,336.4, and the bottom is going to be 1,911. So that means that nothing can go above that or below that bottom number. And then we start looking through here, and look, it all fits. Good. This is step one. And once we've calculated this and we know that we're getting the right thing, and you have to use several battle logs to verify that. You can't just use one just in case you do have because you are working with ranges here. So I've actually got, about 100 swarm logs I've gone through just to verify. And yes, they all do line up with our min-max. See, here's actually an early critical. We'll talk about that in a second. So once we find out all these that line up, now is where we can start working on the critical modifier and talking about how that works. So the critical modifier is actually going to work very similar to what we were just doing. And that is that it's going to now multiply off the number we just created. So instead of it being like, 1 plus 2.6 plus 1.55, it's actually going to be, now we get our new number. So our min max that we had, that 1,911.6 and that 2,336.4. And now we need to multiply that by 1.55 because the calculation comes after you've already created your new min max. This is one of the reasons that critical builds become so powerful, because it's not just additive to the already existing multipliers, it's multiplying on top of those multipliers. Math, crazy. Mind blown, pew. But that's also why we're using small ships to show how this works. That way, when we get to the bigger stuff, say at level 39 or 44, and you have so many more researches and so many more territory bonuses, I don't have any of that right now. So for the basics, this is easier to go through. So let's look at this one. This is a critical right here of 2,989. Now, the lowest our critical should be is 2,962. So this falls in that range that we were just talking about. So when we did that multiplication of 1.55 times our pre-existing numbers, we have now gotten what we were looking for. Now, there are several others in here that we can go through. This one has a critical, if I remember correctly, right here, 3,180, 3,344. These are all falling in the range. Remember, our new max with the critical would be 3,621.42. Sorry, there's so much math in this video, but I think it's good for people to understand, how these logs work and how some of this damage is determined, so you can really build around it. And when I talk about, con adding that critical percentage, this is what they're doing is another multiplier behind what we're already providing for damage. Now, the tricky part is you don't know if you're or when you're going to get that. So you're not getting a flat bonus of ×2 to all your damage. And that's very important to remember. As you're talking about DPR, or damage per round, or damage through a fight, it's not a pure multiplicative because you have to actually hit the criticals. And it's really hard to do that at lower levels, even if you have a base con. For example, look at my Tala's critical percent. It is currently at 11, and now research can bump this up, as well as different officer abilities like con, but that's still a very low chance of hitting a critical, and then the multiplier is still lower than what it would be at a higher level. However, getting that does show a much higher damage range, which is why you can have critical builds take down ships that are far larger than them. A great example is how the Saladin works. If you remember, that big Sally has a big gun, and we've seen that Saladin gun hit for like 1.6 million. As a level 28 ship, that's insane, but that's because the multiplier works like this, where it goes after what we've already calculated, thus creating an even broader damage range than initially possible if we're just doing a straight adding it to what is already existing. So it can be a little bit confusing when you're explaining this out, especially through Discord and everything, but hopefully this visual example helps you out. Now, I said I was going to mention this. Hugo actually wanted me to mention this officer because, well, like many things in the game, it doesn't work how it's reading. But anyway, we got Claw here. I want to show you Claw. Claw's secondary ability is called Critical Strike. Now, for me, it's showing an 8% bonus. So if I put him on a ship, so let's actually go put him on the Tala, I should now see an increase in that damage from 155 to 163. And you will see that when we add him. So here's Claw. We're just going to put him here just for the sake of this right here. You see, it doesn't change our attack percentage or anything because he didn't have enough stats. But come over here, now it's 163. However, Hugo wanted to point out that this is one of the officers that doubles. So not only does he increase it at the base, if you get into battle, you're going to see another. So if you got a max Claw, it's 20% added here, and then when the battle starts, another 20. It doubles up, similar to how Carol doubles up and how you're seeing Pike and Picard get read up on a double up method. This is a very interesting tidbit to learn because we talk about Claw being a speed guy, but also can greatly increase critical damage at a lower level and even at a higher level, because a 40% is nothing to scoff at. Very interesting. But that's the video for today. That's the math lesson, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, smash the like button. I want you to live long and prosper. Stay safe out there, Space Cowboys. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers who are catching this video, whether you watched it on Father's Day or not, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Y'all are awesome. Thank you for supporting the channel as you always do. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and we'll catch you on tomorrow's video where maybe we complain about all these stupid Armada events and not enough Armadas. I don't know yet, but see you then. An even better outro than the intro. Yeah! Woo!